A suitcase hitting the wet pavement makes a very specific, hollow sound. It is the sound of a life shattering. For Camilla, that sound echoed louder than the thunder rolling over the Connecticut hills. She didn't know it yet, standing there in the freezing rain, while her husband's mistress watched from the warm glow of the window. But the papers she held in her trembling hand weren't just divorce papers. They were a death warrant for the very people who had just thrown her out. Sometimes the universe doesn't give you a sign. It gives you $1 billion and a thirst for revenge. And the best part? They never saw it coming. The grand clock in the hallway of the Calloway Manor chimed 7 times, the sound vibrating through the mahogany floorboards. Camilla wiped a smudge of dust from the antique vase, her hands red and chapped. Even after 3 years of marriage to Grant Calloway, the heir to the Calloway logistics fortune, Camilla was treated less like a wife and more like an inconvenient piece of furniture that no one knew where to place. "Camilla!" The shrill voice of Beatrice Calloway, her mother-in-law, pierced the air. Camilla straightened her back, smoothing down the simple grey dress she wore. It was 3 years old, frayed at the hem. Grant hadn't given her an allowance in 6 months, claiming the company was tightening its belt, yet she had seen the receipts for diamond earrings on his desk just yesterday. "I'm here, Beatrice," Camilla said, stepping into the drawing room. Beatrice was sitting on the velvet chaise, swirling a glass of Chardonnay. Beside her, sitting uncomfortably close to where Grant usually sat, was a woman Camilla recognized instantly. Jessica Vane. She was everything Camilla wasn't. Sharp, polished, and draped in designer silk that cost more than Camilla's entire life prior to this marriage. Jessica was Grant's business consultant, or so he claimed. "We need the room," Beatrice said, not even looking at Camilla. "Grant is bringing guests. Important guests. And frankly, dear, you look tired. Why don't you go to the guest cottage?" "The guest cottage?" Camilla blinked. "But Grant said we were hosting the merger dinner tonight. I spent all day prepping the roast." The front door slammed open. Grant strode in, looking flushed and strangely emboldened. He walked right past Camilla, not even pausing to kiss her cheek, and went straight to Jessica, placing a hand on her shoulder. "She doesn't need to go to the guest cottage, Mother," Grant said, his voice cold. He finally turned to Camilla. "She needs to leave." Camilla froze. "Grant, what are you talking about?" Grant pulled a thick manila envelope from his briefcase and tossed it onto the coffee table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped right in front of her. "I'm filing for divorce, Camilla. Irreconcilable differences. Incompatibility. Whatever you want to call it." "Divorce?" Camilla felt the blood drain from her face. "But why? I've done everything. I've cared for your mother. I've managed this house. You're boring, Camilla," Jessica interrupted, her laugh tinkling like shattered glass. She stood up, looping her arm through Grant's. "Look at you. You're a mouse. Grant needs a lioness. He needs someone who fits the Calloway image. We're taking the company public next month, and frankly, having a wife with no pedigree, no money, and no style is a liability." Camilla looked at Grant, searching for a shred of the man she had loved. "Grant, is this true? You're leaving me for her?" "Because of image," Grant sighed, adjusting his cufflinks. "It's not just image, Camilla. Jessica understands business. She understands me. And honestly, you were a charity case. I thought I could mold you, but you're just stagnant," Beatrice chimed in, taking a sip of her wine. "We've packed your things. Your suitcase is already on the porch. The driver will take you to the motel in town. I've paid for 2 nights. After that, you're on your own." "2 nights?" Camilla's voice trembled. "Grant, I have nowhere to go. I gave up my job for you. I have no savings. You should have thought of that before you failed to be an adequate wife," Grant sneered. "Now get out. Jessica and I have champagne to open." Camilla didn't move fast enough for them. Grant grabbed her arm, hard enough to bruise, and marched her to the door. He shoved her out onto the stone steps. The heavy oak door slammed shut. the lock clicking with a finality that echoed in her chest. It was pouring rain. Camilla stood there, staring at the closed door. Through the window, she saw Grant pouring champagne. Jessica threw her head back, laughing at something he said. Beatrice was toasting them. They were celebrating her destruction. She turned and saw her single, battered suitcase sitting in a puddle. She didn't cry. She was too in shock to cry. She grabbed the handle, the cold rain soaking through her thin dress instantly, and began the long walk down the driveway. There was no driver. Beatrice had lied. She walked for 20 minutes, the cold seeping into her bones. Just as she reached the iron gates of the estate, a pair of blinding headlights cut through the darkness. A sleek, black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up silently beside her. It wasn't a taxi. It wasn't the police. The rear window rolled down. An older man with silver hair and a face carved from granite looked out. He didn't look like a savior. He looked like a shark in a suit. "Camilla Sterling?" the man asked. "It's Calloway," she whispered, shivering. "No," the man said, the door clicking open. "It really isn't. Get in. We have a lot of work to do." The interior of the Rolls-Royce was warmer than any room in the Calloway Manor. It smelled of rich leather and expensive tobacco. Camilla sat shivering on the edge of the seat, dripping water onto the pristine floor mats. "Here," the man said, handing her a cashmere towel from a compartment she hadn't even noticed. "Dry yourself. You look like a drowned rat, and the board won't like that." "Who are you?" Camilla asked, her teeth chattering. "And how do you know my maiden name? I haven't used Sterling since the orphanage. My name is Adrian Cross. I am the senior executor for the Wakefield Trust," he said, opening a laptop. "And you, my dear, are not an orphan in the way you think. You were hidden." Camilla stopped drying her hair. "Hidden? By whom?" "By your grandfather, Arthur Sterling." The name hung in the air. Camilla frowned. "I don't know an Arthur Sterling." "Most people don't know the man. They know the empire," Adrian said calmly. "Sterling Heavy Industries. Shipping, aerospace, rare earth mining. He was one of the wealthiest men in the Western Hemisphere, a recluse, a tyrant, and as of 4 a.m. this morning, deceased." Camilla felt the world tilt. I don't understand. If he was my grandfather, why was I in foster care? Why did I grow up with nothing?" Adrian sighed, a flicker of genuine pity crossing his face. "Arthur was a hard man. Your father, his only son, ran away to marry a woman Arthur disapproved of, your mother. Arthur cut them off. When your parents died in that car accident 20 years ago, Arthur was too proud to claim you. He watched you, though, from a distance. He wanted to see if you had the grit to survive without his money." "He watched me?" Camilla's shock turned to sudden, white-hot anger. "Or he watched me starve. He watched me get bullied in foster homes. He watched me marry a man who treated me like garbage just so I could have a roof over my head." "Yes," Adrian said, unblinking, and he regretted it. In his final days, he rewrote his will. He didn't leave his empire to his board of directors or his charitable foundations. Adrian turned the laptop screen toward her. It showed a bank account balance. The numbers were so long, Camilla couldn't process them at first. $14,200,000,000. He left it to you, all of it. The properties in London, the penthouse in Manhattan, the chateau in France, and 51% controlling interest in Sterling Industries. Camilla dropped the towel. "This is a joke. Grant put you up to this. It's a cruel game." "Mr. Calloway is currently trying to secure a high-risk loan from First Union Bank to keep his logistics company afloat," Adrian said dryly. "A bank that you now own. If this were a joke, it would be a very expensive one." Adrian reached into his coat and pulled out a black envelope. "However, there is a condition. Arthur loved games." Camilla took the envelope. "What condition?" "The Wakefield Covenant. You cannot access the liquid cash or announce your identity for 6 months. During this time, you must undergo training. You will be educated on how to run the empire. You will be polished. You will learn to walk, talk, and think like a billionaire. If you fail to impress the board after 6 months, the money goes to charity. If you succeed, you rule the world." Camilla looked down at her hands, the same hands that had scrubbed Beatrice's floors an hour ago. She thought of Grant's sneer. She thought of Jessica's laughter. And, Adrian added, during these 6 months, you are free to use the company's resources to settle your affairs. Anonymously, of course. Camilla looked up, her eyes hardening. The shivering stopped. "Does settling affairs include buying debt?" Adrian smiled, a predatory expression that matched her own. "My dear, you can buy the air they breathe if you wish." "Drive," Camilla said. The next 3 months were a blur of agony and resurrection. Camilla, now going by the name Charlie, was whisked away to a private estate in the Swiss Alps. The isolation was necessary. The media couldn't know the heir was a cast-off housewife. Her days started at 5 a.m. She had tutors for everything. A linguistics expert taught her to drop her nervous stutter and speak with the clipped, authoritative tone of the elite. A financial wizard taught her how to read balance sheets, how to spot a shell company, and how to hostilely take over a corporation. She changed physically, too. The mousy brown hair was cut into a sharp, asymmetrical bob and dyed a rich, dark chocolate. The cheap clothes were replaced by tailored suits from Savile Row, armor made of wool and silk. She learned to walk not with her head down, but with a stride that demanded space. But every night, before she slept, she opened her laptop and logged into the secure server Adrian had set up for her. She wasn't looking at stock prices. She was watching the Calloways. Grant's life was falling apart, and he didn't even know who was pulling the threads. "Status report," Camilla said into her phone one evening, swirling a glass of sparkling water. She was standing on the balcony, overlooking the snowy peaks. "The audit on Callaway Logistics is complete," Adrian's voice came through. "It's worse than we thought. Grant has been embezzling company funds to pay for Jessica's consulting fees. He's drained the operational accounts. They are 3 weeks away from defaulting on their payroll." "And Beatrice?" "She's mortgaged the manor. She's trying to keep up appearances for the upcoming summer gala. She thinks if they throw a big enough party, investors will come running." Camilla smiled. "Let's make sure they do. Have the shadow firm, Vanguard Holdings, reach out to Grant. Tell him we are interested in a silent partnership. We'll offer to bail him out." "He'll accept," Adrian warned, "but the terms will be predatory." "I want the terms to be suffocating," Camilla corrected. "I want a clause that puts all his personal assets, the manor, his cars, his stocks, as collateral, and I want a seat at the table. Vanguard Holdings sends a representative to the gala to sign the deal. Who will the representative be?" "Me." "Camilla," Adrian sounded hesitant, "it's been only 3 months. You look different, yes, but they might recognize you." Camilla caught her reflection in the glass door. She didn't see the scared woman who had been thrown out in the rain. She saw a predator. "They never looked at me, Adrian," she said softly. "They looked through me. To them, Camilla Calloway was a servant. The woman walking into that gala is someone they've never met." "Very well," Adrian said. "I'll draw up the paperwork. Oh, and one more thing. Jessica Vane has been digging." "Digging into what?" "Into you. She's trying to find where you went. She's paranoid that you'll contest the divorce and ask for alimony. Let her dig," Camilla said. "She's about to find out that she's standing on a landmine." Camilla hung up. She walked to her closet and pulled out the dress she had commissioned for the gala. It wasn't grey. It was a deep blood red. The game was on. The Callaway Summer Gala was the kind of event where the champagne cost more than a mid-sized sedan, and the smiles were as fake as the noses on the socialites' faces. The manor, lit up like a beacon against the dark Connecticut sky, was filled with the hum of 100 conversations, none of them honest. Grant Calloway stood by the ice sculpture, a ridiculous swan, adjusting his bow tie. He was sweating. Despite the glitter of the party, Calloway Logistics was hemorrhaging money. The bank accounts were empty. If he didn't secure the investment from Vanguard Holdings tonight, the Calloway name would be mud by Monday morning. "Stop fidgeting," Jessica hissed, appearing at his elbow. She wore a silver dress that was too tight, clearly intended to distract the investors. "You look desperate. They can smell desperation." "I am desperate," Grant whispered harshly. "Where is this representative? It's past 9. If they don't show, we're finished." "They'll show," Beatrice said, joining them. She looked regal, but tired, her pearls hiding the aging skin of her neck. "I've heard this representative is a shark, a woman. Rumor has it she dismantled a tech firm in Silicon Valley, just fee for sport. We need to charm her." At that moment, the room went silent. The heavy double doors of the ballroom swung open. A hush rippled through the crowd, starting at the entrance and washing over the room like a wave. A woman stood in the archway. She was tall, wearing towering stiletto heels that clicked with a military cadence against the marble. Her dress was a deep, violent crimson, cut sharply at the shoulders and flowing like liquid fire to the floor. Her dark hair was severed in a sharp bob that framed a face of striking, cold beauty. Her lips were painted the same shade as her dress. She didn't look like a guest. She looked like she owned the building. "Who is that?" Grant breathed, his eyes widening. He felt a stir of attraction he hadn't felt in years. "That," Beatrice said, squinting, "must be the Vanguard representative. But she looks familiar." The woman began to walk. The crowd parted for her. She moved with a predatory grace, her eyes scanning the room with bored detachment. She walked straight toward the Calloway trio. Grant stepped forward, putting on his best charming smile, the one he used to disarm bankers and seduce secretaries. "Good evening. You must be from Vanguard. I'm Grant Calloway." "Oh." The woman stopped. She looked at his extended hand, then up at his face. She didn't take the hand. "Mr. Calloway," she said. Her voice was low, husky, and carried a faint, indistinguishable transatlantic accent. It sounded nothing like the stuttering, soft-spoken wife he had thrown out. 3 months ago. "I am Miss Sterling. I believe you're waiting for me." "Sterling?" Jessica narrowed her eyes. "That's a common name. Is it?" Camilla, Miss Sterling, turned her gaze to Jessica. The look was withering. "I find common things boring." "Don't you, Mrs. Miss Vane," Jessica corrected sharply. "I am the future Mrs. Calloway." "Ah," Camilla smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "The upgrade, I see." She turned back to Grant, dismissing Jessica entirely. "Shall we skip the pleasantries? I'm not here for the warm white wine or the frozen shrimp. I'm here to decide if your company is worth saving." Grant swallowed hard. "Of course, we have the library prepared for our meeting." "Lead the way," Camilla commanded. As they walked through the crowd, Camilla felt a surge of adrenaline. They didn't know. They truly didn't know. Grant was looking at her legs, not her eyes. Beatrice was looking at her jewelry, a diamond necklace worth $3 million, trying to calculate its value. They were so blinded by their own greed and superficiality that they couldn't see the woman they had tormented for 3 years. She was a ghost, a $1 billion ghost. As they passed the hallway, Camilla paused. She ran a finger along the antique vase, the same one she had been dusting the night she was evicted. "Lovely piece," Camilla murmured. "Ming Dynasty replica. Cheap." Beatrice bristled. "I assure you it is authentic." Camilla pushed the vase gently. It wobbled, then tipped. Crash! The ceramic shattered into 1,000 pieces on the hardwood floor. The sound silenced the nearby guests. "Oops," Camilla said, her face completely deadpan. "Clumsy me. Don't worry, Grant. If you sign the deal tonight, you can buy 12 real ones." She stepped over the shards, crushing a piece of blue porcelain under her red heel. "Shall we?" The library was dim, smelling of old paper and brandy. It was the same room where Grant had tossed the divorce papers at her. Now he was the one sweating on the other side of the desk. Adrian Cross sat in the corner, silent as a statue. He was there as legal counsel, but mostly he was there to enjoy the show. Camilla sat in Grant's high-backed leather chair. She had taken the seat before he could, forcing him to sit in the lower guest chair, the chair Camilla used to sit in when Beatrice scolded her. The power dynamic had physically shifted. "Here is the proposal," Camilla said, sliding a sleek black folder across the desk. Grant opened it, his hands shaking slightly. Jessica leaned over his shoulder, reading frantically. This is a lot of money," Grant said, his eyes lighting up. $50 million. This clears our debt entirely." "It does," Camilla said, leaning back and steeping her fingers. "But Vanguard requires security. We are not a charity." "The interest rate is 15%, Jessica squawked. "That's robbery." "It's high risk," Camilla countered calmly. "Your company is a sinking ship, Miss Vane. You have vendors unpaid for 6 months. You have lawsuits pending from 3 former employees. Frankly, 15% is generous. If you don't like it, I can leave. I have a midnight flight to Tokyo." She made a show of checking her diamond-encrusted watch. "No," Grant shouted, cutting off Jessica. "We'll take it. We have to take it." "Read Clause 4, Adrian spoke up, for the first time. Grant flipped the page. "Collateral. In the event of default, Vanguard Holdings assumes immediate ownership of all personal and professional assets listed in Schedule B." He looked at Schedule B. "My stocks. The warehouse fleet. The manor?" "It's standard," Camilla lied smoothly. "Motivation to ensure you don't default. Unless, of course, you plan on failing." "I won't fail," Grant said, his ego flaring up. "With this capital, we're going public next month. We'll be worth 10 times this loan." "Then you have nothing to worry about," Camilla purred. She pulled a fountain pen from her purse. It was heavy, black lacquer. She uncapped it. "There is one more condition, a personal one." "What?" Grant asked. "I've heard rumors about your management style, Grant. It's loose." Camilla leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. "I want full access to your internal servers, real-time auditing. If I see a single dollar moved out of the company for non-business expenses, say for jewelry or vacations or consulting fees for unqualified staff, the loan is called in immediately, in full." Jessica stiffened. She knew exactly who that was aimed at. "We can't operate like that," Jessica protested. "That's micromanagement." "It's accountability," Camilla said sharply. "Take it or leave it." Grant looked at Jessica, then at the check for $50 million sitting on the table. Greed won. It always won with him. "Jessica, be quiet," Grant snapped. He looked at Camilla. "I agree. We have nothing to hide." "Excellent." Camilla spun the folder around. "Sign here. And here." Grant took the pen. The scratching of the nib on the paper was loud in the silent room. Scritch, scratch. He signed his name. He signed his life away. "Done," Grant exhaled, a look of immense relief washing over him. "You won't regret this, Miss Sterling." Camilla took the folder back, blowing gently on the ink to dry it. She stood up, towering over him in her heels. "Oh, I know I won't," she said. She closed the folder with a snap. "But you might want to start packing, Grant." "Excuse me?" "Just a figure of speech." Camilla smiled, a shark baring its teeth. "Business moves fast." She walked to the door, Adrian following her. As she reached the threshold, she turned back. "By the way, Grant, that shade of grey doesn't suit you. It makes you look stagnant." Grant froze. It was the exact phrase he had used on her. He stared at her, confusion clouding his eyes, but she was already gone, the click of her heels fading down the hallway. 2 weeks later. The euphoria of the $50 million had lasted exactly 10 days. Grant had immediately paid off the most pressing creditors. He had booked a vacation to the Maldives for him and Jessica to celebrate. He felt invincible. He was in his office at Callaway Logistics, pouring a scotch at 11 a.m. when his computer screen flashed red. System lockdown initiated. "What the hell?" Grant muttered. He tapped the keyboard. Nothing. The phone on his desk rang. It was his CFO. "Grant, the accounts, they're frozen," the CFO was screaming. "Calm down," Grant barked. "What do you mean frozen?" "I mean zero access. The bank just clawed back the entire remaining balance of the Vanguard loan, and they triggered the lien on the assets. Security is down here right now. They're escorting people out of the building." Grant dropped his glass. It shattered, splashing scotch over his expensive Italian shoes. "On what grounds?" he roared. "We made the first payment. Breach of contract, Clause 4, subsection C, misappropriation of funds." Grant's face went pale. Yesterday he had transferred $50,000 to a shell account to pay for Jessica's new Porsche. He thought he had hidden it under marketing expenses. He hung up the phone and ran out of his office. The hallway was in chaos. Men in dark suits were seizing laptops. Employees were crying. Standing in the middle of the atrium, looking up at the Callaway logo, was Adrian Cross. Grant stormed down the stairs. "You! What is the meaning of this? I'll sue you! I'll sue Vanguard into the ground!" Adrian looked at him calmly, checking a clipboard. "Mr. Callaway, you violated the audit clause at 4:32 p.m. yesterday. As per the contract you signed, the loan is in default. Since you cannot repay the full $50 million immediately, we are exercising our right to the collateral." "You can't do this!" Grant screamed. "This company is worth $200 million. "Not anymore," Adrian said. "The news of the seizure just hit the wire. Your stock has dropped 60% in the last 20 minutes. You are insolvent." Adrian signaled to 2 large security guards. "Escort Mr. Callaway off the premises. He is trespassing." "Trespassing? I own this building?" "Not as of this morning," Adrian said. "The deed has already been transferred." Grant was dragged out of his own building, kicking and screaming in front of his employees. He was thrown onto the sidewalk, his blazer torn. His phone buzzed. It was Beatrice. "Grant," she was sobbing. The sheriff is at the manor. They're putting padlock chains on the gates. They say we have to leave." Grant scrambled to his feet. "I'm coming, Mother. Don't let them in." He hailed a taxi. His company car had already been booted and raced towards the manor. When he arrived, it was a circus. Police cars blocked the driveway. A moving truck was already parked on the lawn. Beatrice was standing on the porch, clutching her jewelry box. Jessica was screaming at a deputy, waving her hands. "This is illegal!" Jessica shrieked. "My clothes are in there. My furs." "They're part of the estate now, ma'am," the deputy said tiredly. Grant ran up the steps. "Officer, this is a mistake. I need to speak to the owner. Who is doing this?" A black Rolls-Royce pulled up the driveway, parting the sea of police cars, the same Rolls-Royce from the night of the rainstorm. The driver opened the back door. Grant stopped breathing. He expected the harsh woman from the gala, the shark, but the woman who stepped out wasn't wearing the red dress. She was wearing a simple, elegant white trench coat. She looked soft, almost familiar. She walked up the steps, ignoring the police, ignoring Beatrice, and stopped in front of Grant. She took off her sunglasses. For the first time in months, Grant looked at her eyes. Really looked at them. They were hazel. They were the eyes he had woken up to for 3 years. "Hello, Grant," she said softly. Grant staggered back as if he had been punched. His mouth opened and closed. Camilla?" Beatrice gasped. "The maid?" "No," Camilla said, her voice turning to steel. "Not the maid. The landlord." She reached into her bag and pulled out a set of keys. His keys. She jingled them. "You gave me 2 nights at the motel, Grant. I'm feeling generous. I'll give you 1 hour to get your things. Anything left after 60 minutes goes to the trash." She leaned in close, so only he could hear. "And Grant? Don't take the towels. I counted them." The 60 minutes Camilla had granted them were not an act of mercy. They were a magnifying glass. Standing under the expansive black canopy of a windproof umbrella held by Adrian Cross, Camilla watched the dissolution of the Calloway dynasty in real time. The rain had returned with a vengeance, a torrential downpour that turned the manicured lawns into a bog and drummed a deafening rhythm against the slate roof of the manor. It was the same rain that had soaked her to the bone 3 months ago, the same cold that had bitten into her skin as she dragged her suitcase into the dark. But tonight, she was dry. Tonight, she was warm in her cashmere trench coat. Tonight, she was the storm. Inside the house, chaos reigned. Through the large bay windows, Camilla could see frantic movement. It was like watching ants when the hill has been kicked over. Beatrice was the first to emerge, and the sight was a tragicomic masterpiece of fallen grace. The matriarch, who had once scolded Camilla for a single wrinkle in a linen napkin, was dragging a massive Louis Vuitton steamer trunk across the porch. She was wearing a fur coat over her pajamas, her hair in disarray, her face a mask of smeared mascara and panic. She wrestled the trunk down the wet stone steps, her heels slipping. "Grant, help me!" she shrieked, her voice cracking against the thunder. Grant didn't appear. He was inside, frantically trying to save his own sinking ship. Beatrice hauled the trunk towards the driveway, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She made it to the sleek silver Mercedes-Benz parked near the fountain. She fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking so violently she dropped them twice into the mud. "Open, damn you!" she screamed, finally jamming the fob. She yanked the door handle. It didn't move. She pulled again, harder, her fingernails scratching against the paint. "What is this? Why won't it open?" "It won't open, Mrs. Calloway." Adrian's voice cut through the rain. He didn't shout, yet his baritone carried perfectly over the noise of the storm. Beatrice spun around, squinting through the downpour at the 2 figures standing by the Rolls-Royce. "You! What have you done to my car?" "It's not your car," Adrian corrected calmly. "It is a corporate lease under Calloway Logistics. As the company is now in receivership and the asset freeze is total, the vehicle has been remotely disabled. The repossession team will be here in the morning." Beatrice stared at the car, her symbol of status, her freedom, then back at the trunk. "But how am I supposed to leave? I have my silver. I have the family albums." "There is a bus stop at the end of the main road," Camilla said. Her voice was soft, but it hit Beatrice like a physical blow. "It's about a 2-mile walk. I suggest you start now. The mud makes the uphill climb difficult." Beatrice's jaw dropped. You ungrateful little wretch. After everything I did for you, I gave you a home." "You gave me a servant's quarters and a list of chores," Camilla replied, her expression unmoving. "And tonight, I'm giving you a life lesson. It's a fair trade." Beatrice looked at the heavy trunk. Then she looked at the dark, rain-slicked driveway stretching out towards the iron gates. A sob ripped from her throat, a raw, ugly sound of defeat. She let go of the trunk. It fell with a heavy thud. She didn't look back at the house. She pulled her fur coat tighter, turned, and began to trudge into the darkness, the mud instantly ruining her Italian shoes. Next came the explosion of pink and sequins. Jessica Vane burst out of the front door like a firework of fury. She wasn't carrying luggage. She was carrying armfuls of clothes, hangers still attached, sleeves dragging on the wet porch. She had grabbed everything she could: silk blouses, designer jackets, limited edition handbags hooked over her elbows. She looked deranged. The business consultant facade was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated greed. She ran toward Grant's Porsche, slipping on the wet stones and nearly dropping a stack of cashmere sweaters. "Open the trunk!" she screamed back at the house. "Grant, get your ass out here and open the trunk." Grant appeared in the doorway. He looked like a ghost. He was holding a single battered leather duffel bag. He stared at Jessica, his eyes hollow. "The Porsche is gone, Jess," Grant said, his voice dead. "They booted it. Look." Jessica froze. She looked at the bright yellow clamp locked onto the wheel of the sports car. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no, my clothes. I can't carry all this." She turned toward Camilla. The two women locked eyes across the rain-swept drive. Jessica's face twisted into a snarl. "You did this," Jessica hissed, stepping off the porch. "You jealous, vindictive bitch. You couldn't keep him, so you had to destroy him." "I didn't destroy him, Jessica," Camilla said, stepping forward slightly, emerging from the shadow of the umbrella. "I just turned on the lights. You're the one who decided to loot the burning building." Jessica adjusted the mountain of clothes in her arms, her eyes darting around for a solution. "I'm taking an Uber, and I'm suing you for emotional distress." "You can try," Camilla said, "but before you go, drop the clothes." Jessica clutched them tighter. "These are mine. Grant bought them for me. With company funds," Camilla said. "Embezzled funds, which makes those clothes stolen property. We have the receipts, Jessica. Every single transaction. The Chanel bag, the Dior scarf, the Jimmy Choos. It's all evidence in a federal fraud investigation." Camilla checked her watch. "The police are still at the gate. If you walk out of here with that merchandise, I will have them arrest you for grand larceny. The choice is yours. Walk away with your freedom, or leave in handcuffs with your accessories." Jessica turned pale. She looked at the clothes. Tens of thousands of dollars of fabric. She looked at the blue lights of the police cruisers flickering in the distance. She screamed. It was a primal shriek of frustration. She threw the clothes. She hurled the armful of silk and leather onto the driveway. The pristine fabrics landed in the puddles. Mud splashed over a white blazer. A Hermes bag sank into the mire. "I hate you!" Jessica screamed at Grant, ignoring Camilla entirely now. "You told me you were a king. You told me you were untouchable." "I thought I was," Grant mumbled, stepping into the rain. "You're a loser," Jessica spat, backing away. "A broke, pathetic loser. Don't you dare call me. Don't you dare look for me. We are done." She turned on her heel and ran down the driveway, her stilettos clicking frantically until she disappeared into the gloom, leaving the pile of ruined luxury goods as a monument to her vanity. And then there was only Grant. He stood on the bottom step, the rain plastering his hair to his skull within seconds. The expensive suit he wore, the one he had put on for the gala, thinking he was about to conquer the world, was soaked through. He held his small bag. He looked at the empty driveway where his mother and Mistress had abandoned him. He walked slowly toward Camilla. He stopped 5 feet away. He didn't look angry. He looked shattered. "Satisfied?" he asked. His voice was hoarse. Camilla looked at him. She remembered the day she met him. She remembered thinking he was her prince, charming, rescuing her from a life of loneliness. She remembered how hard she had tried to be the perfect wife, to make herself small so he could feel big. "No," Camilla said honestly. "Satisfaction implies pleasure. I don't feel pleasure, Grant. I feel balance." "You could have stopped this." Grant wiped water from his eyes. "You could have told me who you were. Why didn't you? Why the games?" "Because if I had told you I was a sterling," Camilla said, her eyes boring into his, "you would have stayed with me for the money. And I needed to know if there was anything real in you, anything at all." "And?" Grant asked, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "And I found out that you are exactly who I feared you were. A man who measures love by net worth." Grant looked down at his shoes, ruined in the mud. "I have nothing, Camilla. No money, no home. My friends won't answer my calls. What am I supposed to do?" Camilla gestured to the world beyond the gates. "You're young, Grant. You have your health. You have 2 hands. I suggest you use them. There are plenty of jobs out there. I heard the warehouse on 5th Street is hiring night shifts. Minimum wage, but it's honest work, something you've never done in your life." "You expect me to work in a warehouse?" Grant scoffed, a flash of his old arrogance returning. "I am a Calloway." "Not anymore," Camilla said softly. "The Calloway name is toxic. By tomorrow morning, it will be synonymous with fraud and failure. You're nobody now, Grant. Just like I was." She signaled to Adrian. "Time's up." Adrian stepped forward, his presence intimidating. "Move along, Mr. Calloway. "You are trespassing." Grant hesitated. He looked at the warm glow of the windows, the library, the drawing room, the bedroom where he had slept for 30 years. He looked back at Camilla, waiting for a crack in her armor, a sign of the woman who used to cry when he raised his voice. He found nothing but a reflection of his own failure. Shoulders slumped, Grant Calloway turned and walked into the rain. He walked past his mother's abandoned trunk. He walked past Jessica's ruined clothes. He walked past the wreckage of his life, disappearing into the dark, wet night. Camilla watched until he was gone. "Let's go inside, Adrian," she said, turning her back on the storm. "We have work to do." 3 weeks later. The transformation of Calloway Manor was absolute. Camilla had not just cleaned the house, she had exorcised it. The heavy, dark Victorian drapes that Beatrice loved were gone, replaced by sheer linen that let the sunlight flood in. The pretentious oil paintings of Calloway ancestors, men with cruel eyes and weak chins, had been taken down and stored in the basement, replaced by modern art and vibrant landscapes. The staff had been completely replaced. The new team was efficient, kind, and well paid. The house no longer smelled of old wax and judgment. It smelled of fresh flowers and coffee. Camilla sat in the newly renovated study. It was a room Grant had never allowed her to enter. Now it was her command center. She wore a crisp white suit, her hair styled in a sharp, professional cut. She was reviewing the final liquidation documents for Calloway Logistics. The company had been dismantled. The assets were sold to pay off the debts Grant had incurred. The remainder of the workforce had been absorbed into Sterling Industries, their pensions saved by Camilla's intervention. She was tired, but it was a good tired, the kind that comes from building something, not from dodging blows. There was a knock on the door. Adrian Cross entered. He looked somber, clutching a thin, weathered leather portfolio against his chest. "Camilla," he said, closing the door behind him, "we need to discuss the final thread." "Is it Beatrice?" Camilla asked, not looking up from her iPad. "I heard she's staying at a motel on the interstate. I assume the money from her jewelry is running low." "It is," Adrian said, "but this isn't about her current state. It's about her past, and yours." Camilla looked up, sensing the shift in his tone. "My past?" Adrian sat across from her. He placed the leather portfolio on the desk. It smelled of mildew and time. "When your grandfather, Arthur Sterling, died, he left you the money. But he also left a box of files for me, with instructions to open them only after you had successfully taken the manor." "What's in the files?" "The truth about why he hated the Calloways," Adrian said, "and why he was so hard on your father for marrying your mother." Camilla frowned. "I always thought it was snobbery. My mother was poor. She was an orphan, raised in the system, just like I eventually was." "Your mother wasn't just poor, Camilla. Her mother, your grandmother, was a maid." "I know," Camilla said. "Honest work." "She was a maid here," Adrian said quietly, "at Calloway Manor in 1985. The room went silent. The ticking of the grandfather clock seemed to slow down. "My grandmother worked." "Here?" Camilla whispered. "Yes, for Grant's grandfather, Silas Calloway." Adrian opened the portfolio. He pulled out yellowed documents, blueprints, and a handwritten confession. In the mid-80s, Arthur Sterling was on the verge of a breakthrough. He had designed a revolutionary logistics algorithm, a navigation system that would change global shipping. It was the key to the Sterling future. But before he could patent it, it was stolen. Camilla felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "Stolen?" "Industrial espionage," Adrian confirmed. Silas Calloway was a failing businessman at the time. He needed a miracle. He found out that one of the maids at the Sterling estate had a sister working at the Calloway estate. Your grandmother. Adrian slid a photo across the desk. It was a black and white picture of a young woman who looked hauntingly like Camilla. She looked terrified. Silas Calloway cornered your grandmother. He found out she had a criminal record for petty theft, stealing food to feed her child. He blackmailed her. He told her he would have her sent to prison and her daughter, your mother, put in an abusive foster home if she didn't do what he asked. Camilla's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. She had access to Arthur's study when she visited her sister. Calloway forced her to steal the blueprints. She did it to protect her child. She handed the plans to Silas Calloway. He used that technology to build Calloway Logistics. He made billions off your grandfather's genius. Camilla stared at the papers, her vision blurring. So, everything they had, everything Beatrice flaunted, was stolen from your family, Adrian finished. The money, the reputation, this house. It was all built on the back of your grandmother's fear and your grandfather's stolen mind. Does Beatrice know? The file indicates she took over the payments to your grandmother after Silas died. Hush money, disguised as a pension. When your father met your mother, Arthur Sterling went ballistic, not because she was poor, but because she was the daughter of the woman who betrayed him. He didn't know she was coerced. He only knew the pain. Adrian leaned forward. And Beatrice, she hated you, Camilla, because she feared you. Every time she looked at your face, she saw the crime her family committed. She kept you down, treated you like dirt, because she was terrified that one day you would wake up and realize that you were the rightful owner of it all. Camilla stood up. She walked to the window, looking out at the sprawling gardens. The cruelty, the years of emotional abuse, the way Beatrice looked at her with such specific, venomous loathing. It all made sense. It wasn't just that Camilla was unworthy. It was that Camilla was the walking, breathing evidence of their original sin. They had enslaved the granddaughter of the woman they blackmailed. It was a cycle of abuse that spanned 2 generations. Arthur watched you, Adrian said softly. He figured it out eventually, that your grandmother was a victim, not a villain. But he was too proud to apologize. So he watched. He wanted to see if you had the strength to break the cycle. He wanted to see if you could take back what was stolen. He knew I would come here, Camilla realized. He knew I would marry Grant. He suspected it. He knew Grant was looking for a weak wife he could control. Arthur gambled that you would survive the fire and come out as steel. The intercom on the desk buzzed, interrupting the heavy silence. Miss Sterling? The security chief's voice crackled. We have a situation at the main gate. Camilla walked over and pressed the button. What is it? It's Mr. Calloway, ma'am. He's causing a scene. He says he needs to speak to you. He's refusing to leave. Camilla looked at Adrian. Her eyes were no longer filled with questions. They were filled with the cold clarity of a judge delivering a final verdict. Let him in, she said, but escort him to the drawing room. And don't let him sit down. 5 minutes later, Grant Calloway stood in the center of the drawing room. He looked horrific. It had been 3 weeks, but it looked like 3 years. His clothes were cheap, ill-fitting thrift store finds. He had lost weight. His eyes were bloodshot, darting around the room, taking in the changes, the brightness, the absence of his family's clutter. He looked at Camilla, who stood by the fireplace, holding the yellowed file. Camilla, Grant croaked. He tried to smile, but it was a grimace. You look incredible. Business suits you. What do you want, Grant? Camilla asked. Her tone was bored. I need help, Grant blurted out, his pride finally evaporating completely. I can't do it. The warehouse, the shifts. I'm not built for it. I'm living in a boarding house, Camilla. There are rats. Please. I know I was terrible. I know I messed up. But we were married. Doesn't that mean anything? He took a step forward, his hands out. I'm not asking for the company back. Just a loan. A small setup fund. Enough to get an apartment. Maybe start a small consultancy. I can pay you back. Camilla looked at him. She looked at the hands that had once thrown divorce papers at her face. You want a loan? She asked. Yes, please. Call it a settlement. Alimony. Whatever. Camilla laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. Alimony? Grant, you seem to be confused about who owes whom. She threw the file at his feet, the papers scattered across the pristine rug. What is this? Grant asked, looking down. Read it, she commanded. Grant knelt. He picked up the confession. He picked up the blueprints marked Property of Sterling Industries. He read the blackmail letters signed by Silas Calloway. As he read, the color drained from his face until he looked like a corpse. He sat back on his heels, the papers trembling in his hands. This isn't true, he whispered. My grandfather was a genius. Your grandfather was a thug, Camilla cut in, and your mother was his accomplice. Your entire life, the prep schools, the Ivy League education, the cars, the entitlement, it was all paid for with money stolen from my family. You didn't build a legacy, Grant. You inherited a crime scene. Grant looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. It doesn't matter if you knew, Camilla said coldly. You benefited from it. You walked around like a king, treating me like a peasant, while sleeping under a roof my grandfather's genius paid for. You owe me, Grant. You owe me 40 years of interest. You owe me my grandmother's dignity. You owe me my mother's childhood. She stepped closer, towering over him as he knelt on the floor. So no, there will be no loan. There will be no apartment. There will be no help. You are going to go back to that warehouse, and you are going to lift boxes, and you are going to sweat for minimum wage. And every time your back aches, every time you look at your blistered hands, you are going to remember that for the first time in the history of the Calloway family, you are actually earning your keep. Grant stared at her, mouth open, realizing the absolute finality of his position. The moral high ground he had tried to cling to, the idea that she was just a vindictive ex-wife, had disintegrated. He wasn't a victim. He was the byproduct of a theft. Camilla, please, he whimpered. It was the sound of a broken child. Get out, Camilla said. She didn't shout. She just said it with the weight of $1 billion behind it. Adrian, she called out. Adrian stepped out from the hallway. This way, Mr. Calloway. Grant stood up shakily. He dropped the papers. He looked at Camilla one last time, hoping for a shred of the woman who used to love him, but that woman was dead. She had died the night she was thrown out into the rain. He turned and walked out. The door closed with a heavy, final thud. Camilla stood alone in the silence. She looked down at the scattered papers, the evidence of the trauma that had defined her family for generations. She bent down and gathered them up. She walked to the fireplace, where a bright fire was crackling. She tossed the file into the flames. She watched the yellowed paper curl and blacken. She watched the signature of Silas Calloway turn to ash. She watched the blueprints of the stolen machine disappear into smoke. The debt was paid. The curse was broken. Camilla walked to the window and looked out at the night. The storm had passed. The clouds were breaking, revealing a full, bright moon illuminating the estate. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the clean, cool air of her own empire. She wasn't Camilla the orphan. She wasn't Camilla the rejected wife. She was Camilla Sterling, and she had finally come home. Sometimes the universe doesn't just balance the scales, it flips the entire table. Camilla's journey wasn't just about getting rich, it was about unearthing a truth that had been buried under decades of lies and arrogance. She proved that while you can steal ideas and money, you can never truly steal class or strength. The Calloways built a castle on sand, and all it took was one woman with the will to bring the tide in. What do you think of that ending? Was the revelation about the grandmother the perfect twist, or was leaving Grant with absolutely nothing too harsh? I'd love to hear your take in the comments below. Let's get a debate going. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please do me a huge favor. Hit that like button to help the channel grow. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that karma is real, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our next saga of betrayal and revenge. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.